Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I'm your host, Lori Palau, and I'm very excited for today's guest. So joining me today is Zoë Kim. Yay. And we all know I love the name Zoe because I have Zoe. And Zoë is the founder, creator of the community, the online community called Raising Simple, which I love. And it started as a blog. It's grown into this whole big kind of movement. She's also an author, and she wrote the book Minimalism for Families. And it's interesting because if you're a longtime listener to our show, or you've been listening for even since the beginning of this year, you will have heard Zoe's significant other, her husband, Matt Paxton, earlier in this year. And I'm going to link to his episode, which was episode 269. And we were talking all about creating a legacy list because he's also in the decluttering space, but in a different kind of area, realm, spectrum. And during our conversation, and I was talking to him about his business and how his life has changed, not just professionally, but personally, he started talking about how his life changed after reading this book written by this amazing woman. And it really got him thinking about the stuff that he's holding on to, how he's living his life. And fast forward, and she can fill in the details. They met, fell in love, got married, blended a family, and now have 7 kids and live in Georgia. So crazy town. But I said to Matt on the air, well, if she's that awesome, we have to get her on the show. And so finally that day is here, and I'm very excited because I wanted to talk to Zoë to find out a little bit about her story, how she got into this minimalism space, what that looks like to her. Before in doing kind of research prior to this interview, I was on her website and her blog and stalking, reading all about the things that she has going on in her adorable farmhouse. And just, it was one of those moments where I was like, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. So I'm very, very excited to chat with her. And then right before we went on the air, we did start to talk about the Enneagram. And I said, let's put a pin in that because we're going to do a little Enneagram dissection on the air as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest for today, Zoë Kim. Welcome, Zoë.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. And I can't help but blush as I hear you talk about my life and all the wonderful things that Matt said.
Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. That's why I do live read. So if anybody is out there, so behind the scenes, a lot of times when you are a guest on someone's show, they pre-record or post-record the intro. And so when you are meeting up with the guest, you just dive right into the talking points. And then in post-edit, the intro is added in later. I like to do it live because I like people to hear the nice things that people are saying about them. And I think it just, I don't know. I think it just kind of sets the tone for the interview as opposed to just diving in and being all utilitarian.
Yes, no, that's wonderful.
So anyway, okay. So obviously I gave our listeners my little top line perspective overview of who you are and a little bit about you, but in your own words, can you just tell everybody a little bit about Zoë Kim?
Yeah, well, so I'd like to start off with how I got into living a minimalist lifestyle. You've covered that we have 7 kids. Did you mention that?
I did. I said it kind of in passing. I don't want to gloss over that because that's a big number. And
you're right. It's a big number. All right, let's backtrack.
That's a basketball team with 2 people on the bench. People like I have a basketball player. So
you're right. And 2 of those would probably be happy to be on the bench. They could be the cheerleader, so it works out. So Matt and I, we are a blended family, and we have 7 kids combined. We live in this minimalist modern farmhouse together. We have a cottage house, or a tiny house, if you want to call it. It's almost 500, just under 500 square feet in the backyard. I built that for my mom. So the technical term is an ADU, if anybody's interested, in accessory dwelling unit. So that's a whole nother area.
A whole other, is that the actual official term for a tiny house?
Yes.
Or is it different?
I mean, that is the term that if you were wanting to build that in your backyard and you live in a city and you need to go get
like zoning and permits. And okay.
Yep. It is an ADU, accessory dwelling unit. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I just learned, I was today years old when I learned that.
Yes. So we built that for my mom in the backyard, and it's the first one actually in the city. So we're, creating new things here. And I'm an ENFP, if anybody's interested in that. And
a little Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs, and we're gonna talk about the Enneagram in a little bit. I've been living a minimalist lifestyle for a decade. Over 11 years now. So
and how old are your kids? Can you give us the range of the kids?
Yes.
I know Matt did, but for people like that didn't listen to that.
No, that's great. That didn't listen to the episode with Matt, but now they might go back. You should listen.
They're going to.
Matt's so funny. You've got to listen to it, right? Because then you hear us.
He's hysterical.
Together. He's hysterical. Yes. Yeah. So 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, and one girl, 16.
I remember that. I remember he said that your daughter, I said, is she counting down the days to get out of Dodge for college?
Basically,
with
yeah.
6 brothers.
She's counting down the days to get into the tiny house.
Oh, there you go. Now, does she share a bathroom? I have to, before we get into all the does she share a bathroom with them?
She does not. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I was building this house, we were dating.
Okay.
Matt and I were dating. So I had an unfinished bonus area above the garage that in the back of my mind, I was like, Matt's going to move here from Virginia. So I'm going to frame that out so that I can finish it off later.
Okay.
For his boys.
So, and just for I know this split, but just for people that don't know, Matt came with how many kids, and you?
Yes, I have 4,
mm-hmm.
and he has 3. So he has 3 boys, and I have 3 boys and a girl.
Okay, so you're framing out this house,
yes,
with it in your back of your mind, thinking, okay, they're gonna be moving here, and
yeah. So, but the main house is, so Bella, my daughter, she does have her own bedroom, and she has her own bathroom. And then my 2 littles share a room. They're only 18 months apart.
Okay.
And then my 13-year-old boy has his own room. And those 3 boys share one bathroom.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
it works.
All right. And then you and Matt have your own room, obviously.
We do. And that's downstairs.
So you have your whole ensuite, your own bathroom,
yes,
your own private sanctuary.
We do. And our bedroom and office, little mini office that I'm in now, off of our bedroom, they are not above us. I kind of did that as an almost like an addition, but it's not an addition.
Yeah.
So you've got the box of the house, but then our bedroom is off the back.
Gotcha.
And so they're not above us. Yeah. So, as your kids get older, you're like, yeah, they need some space. I need some space. You're old enough. I don't need to be right next to you.
The older my kids got, and I have bigs now, I have an 18 and 21, but I would put myself in a timeout because I was like, I need to go. I need a minute. I need a minute. So.
Yes. Oh, it's really, we just have been so lucky being a blended family. I've heard some really hard, just sad stories about blended families, and we're just so lucky they get along all as if they're regular. They have typical sibling challenges. That's it.
That's amazing.
You know,
but let's talk about the minimalism aspect of it.
Yes.
Because I mean, even with, that's just a lot of stuff that comes with people.
It's a lot of stuff.
So talk us through kind of how you got into this in the first place.
Yeah. So about 11 years ago, it actually started out where I wanted to start wasting less in the kitchen. I felt like I was just wasting a lot of food. I enjoy eating a lot more than I enjoy cooking. So I wanted to that was just something I wanted to get better at. So I was doing some research. I didn't follow any blogs or anything at that time. And I came across Bea Johnson at Zero Waste Home. Mm-hmm. She's kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's
very vaguely, but you can tell us just a little bit about her.
Yeah. I mean, she travels all around. She has dual citizenship, I believe, with France and the US, but she has 2 boys and she's married. And there was an article, it showed photos of her house. And even though her home was much more extreme as far as the minimalism goes, when I saw her house and how minimalist it was, and she was zero waste, right? All of her trash for a year fit in like 1 jar.
Which I can't even like wrap my brain around.
Right. Yeah. And neither can I.
Like if I missed trash pickup, I would be like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
We would be in trouble, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yes, because it's full. And but when I saw her house, it just kind of blew my mind and opened my world up to, wow, she doesn't have a lot of stuff and she is like living her life and they're doing all these experiences, and she even has kids. Because I mean, I got to be honest, right? When you have kids, if you're talking to somebody who doesn't have kids and they're living their life, you're like, well, yeah, you don't have kids, right? Totally. So we kind of just automatically use that handicap sometimes. I'm going to admit that I do that sometimes. I try not to, but so right then I was like, freedom, and an analogy that a lot of people going minimalist use is what was that movie?
I don't know. Now I'm like, what movie?
He's on the hill and he yells, freedom. Braveheart.
Oh, yes.
Okay, literally, yes, there's memes. Okay.
Yes.
Because you get freedom from your stuff. Like your stuff owns you. You think that, oh, I'm buying this. You get all this stuff, but really your stuff ends up owning you.
Well, that's I quote Fight Club, Tyler Durden.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but it's true. We often buy things to fill a void, and it could be whatever that is, not realizing that, or that you think that the thing is going to solve your problem.
Right.
So that was your first start. And what was your life like before this? Like, can you just give us a snapshot of where were you prior to this?
So I was married with 2 kids at this time. So I had my daughter and my son. My daughter was 5, and my now husband at the time was deployed, and we were moving without him. We tried to plan it where he was going to be home, but it just didn't work out. So I had to move without him home, and I ended up packing up all these boxes. And these are things, his and my stuff from before. And he kind of tended to save a lot of those like cords. I mean, 20-foot long old cable cords. And I'm like, what are we doing with this? What is this stuff? Why am I spending time moving it? I'm paying a babysitter. I'm spending a whole month of my summer. I don't have time to be with my kids and go to the pool because I'm moving things. I don't even know what this stuff is. This is ridiculous. Like, This is just, why am I doing this? So that was kind of the epiphany of, I don't want to live like this.
Can I just make a point? Because I think you just hit on something that's really important, and I want to just kind of highlight it for a minute.
Yeah.
a lot of times, and I think this is why, especially during the pandemic, when everyone was at home, and that's when people started focusing in on doing so many things. Obviously, we had not a lot of other things to do unless you were a first responder, but you were in there when you're faced to actually look at it. That's when people go, what am I doing? But for a lot of people, it's very easy in the short term to just go, just stick it in the drawer, just stick it in the basement, just stick it in the attic, just push it away. I'll deal with it later, until that later shows up. And so again, I'm not picking on your ex-husband or anybody out there that's done this.
We all do. We've all done it.
We've all done it. But when you're sitting there, like you said, I could picture you in that moment going, I'm wasting time, energy, money in terms of supplies and the babies are to pack up stuff that I don't even know what this is.
Yes.
Why am I even holding on to this? That for so many people is a light bulb moment. So anyway, continue your story. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. So that was the epiphany moment, of just, wow, I don't want to do this anymore. And then, like you said, when you have to actually take care of when you have to actually move your things. And that's why I think statistically people who move get rid of stuff more, because they have to actually pack it up and move it. Right. And, what is her name? Allie. I'll have to remember. No. No, she's a book writer, but she said, you never realize how much stuff you have until you try to put it in a box. So, oh my gosh. We'll have to give her credit.
Yes, we will.
But I love her. Yeah. Yes. I love her writing. But it's so true, because you have to actually touch it and pack it. And, the value of something changes when we have to actually physically take care of it and give energy to it with our brain and our time. Yeah. As opposed to just packing it away. But I don't know if you've done much reading on the stress levels and the cortisol levels of women, right? In particular, which was really interesting, are higher. The cortisol levels in women are higher when they think about their stuff that's in a closet that they know is there, versus a man thinking about his stuff in a closet. So, yes,
I did not know that statistic. It doesn't surprise me, but I talk about it is absolutely, it's so emotional. And that's one of the things that I really focus in on, is it's not the physical.
Right. And maybe that's because I'm in ENFP. I'm a feeler, right? So I'm like, the stuff is in there. I know it, right? So once I became aware of it, I just couldn't, forget about it. I couldn't compartmentalize that all that stuff was in the closet, kind of just weighing on me. So
but then knowing what to do is the next step, right? So know that this is a source of stress. You know that it's a source of anxiety. You know that this is, I don't want to live like this. But then a lot of people get to that point and they're like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yes. So I think this helps in the fact that I was not a perfectionist. I can be a perfectionist about certain things, like painting. I'm a creative. So if I've got something in my brain, I want it to come out a certain way. But as far as like letting go of things, maybe I was just at such a breaking point and such an exhaustion level that I was not a perfectionist about letting go. And that helped me, right? But if I was to be like, I want this item to go to the perfect place and I'm going to find the perfect person for this blouse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get very far.
Well, and I'm going to stress myself out. That's a whole other level of decision fatigue. That's a whole other level.
Exactly. But I think that, from my experience and working with families and women that struggle, that decision fatigue, and that fear of making a mistake or making the wrong decision gets in the way of making any decision at all.
I talk about it as one of my clutter pitfalls. I have 5 main clutter pitfalls, and one of them is indecision, and it's the fear of making a mistake. And I talk all about that because it is, that is real.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about your approach. So you started getting rid of, so was it like, a Marie Kondo type, like this isn't sparking joy? What was your approach? Because again, like that, again, not knocking anybody, that if that works for you, and God bless, but that doesn't always, that isn't always the best strategy for everybody. So what was your approach?
Yeah. So my approach was to just discard things that literally had no emotional value. So I would just start with one section and things that were easy to me. So like in the kitchen, plastic cups, things that I just didn't use, that didn't have any emotional value, that I didn't have to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. The least amount of decision involved of brain power of making decisions, because I actually don't like to make decisions. It's something that I actually can get stuck on. So clothes did not come first because I don't like shopping. And so I was like, well, if I get rid of this, then gosh, I don't have another, I'll just say black shirt to wear. And then I have to go to the store and buy one. So can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
But basically just like an onion, I like to compare it to peeling an onion, right?
Okay.
The easier layers are on the outside, and not like I like to make this sound painful, but sometimes you start to cry as you get to the center, right?
Oh, I like that analogy, Zoe.
I mean, so you just start peeling the onion layers away. But as you go, I mean, it gets better and it gets easier. And I tend to also think of letting go as a muscle, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're exercising, you're not going to start out lifting 200 pounds. You're going to start out lifting 2 pounds, mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with letting go, with making decisions about what you're going to declutter and letting all this stuff go that you're not using and that you're not wearing. Because a lot of it, it's not the stuff, it's actually how you feel about the stuff. That's the struggle.
Did you read my book? Because you're like quoting my book. Like
I did not read your book. Which is embarrassing.
No, well, I said to you right before we went on the air, I was like, I haven't read your book. Although
I wasn't going to announce it.
No, but I was like, no, I'm just kidding, because I literally quotes from my book, and that's what I say. It's about how it makes you feel, and I cannot agree more in starting with what I call the low-hanging fruit. And for people that come to me and say, I don't know where to begin, I'm overwhelmed everywhere, I always recommend, if someone's like, where should I start? Right. Because I always say, mm-hmm. You got to start where it's your biggest pain point. But in the same token, if you need to start building that muscle and you are struggling with emotional clutter, bathrooms and kitchens are where I always recommend somebody starting. If they're not sure where, because you have expiration dates. You are removing that decision fatigue from you.
And that's why it's hard for me when someone says, oh, so where should I start in my house? I honestly, I'm such a thinker, and I really feel like everybody's different, and the way that we think about our stuff is different, and our pain points are different, that I cannot give just one answer. I've heard people recommend a junk drawer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Personally, I would never want to start with a junk drawer. Do you know why? There's nowhere to put that crap.
Right.
Where are you going to? Yeah. Like, there's a reason it's a junk drawer. It's because you don't have a home for all of that stuff.
Right.
So now you have to not only decide if you want it, but you have to go find a home for all of it.
Correct. Yes. I would not recommend a junk drawer either. So for anybody that's listening out there and you're trying to think of where you want to start, we do not recommend that.
Yay. High five.
Definitely.
Forget the junk drawer. But, on those terms, wherever that person feels like they're going to have them, like they feel internally motivated to tackle that project, they have the time allowed to be able to finish it. Right.
Okay. So are you a start to finish the whole project at one time, or are you a little at a, right. So
because again, I feel like it depends on the person. Right. If someone's like, I have an hour for the next 3 days and I'm going to do my closet, my wardrobe. Mm-hmm. And, and they're motivated to do it. That's awesome. Do the hour each day. But if they're, someone who they're going to just feel overwhelmed, like I would have felt overwhelmed with that, with the wardrobe in the beginning, then that's not what I would suggest. One of the other things that I like to say about people getting started, though, is give yourself a project that you can complete, but also give yourself a reward, right?
Yes.
So this is what I would do with my kids. I would say, hey, let's declutter the living room together. And this was kind of like an exercise, right? I'm building their muscle. Mm-hmm. And then let's have a popcorn movie night. Okay. So we did that. Then we get the reward. So maybe you declutter, how about you take out every single shirt you haven't worn in a year and a half, and you donate it to the thrift store that pays you whatever, $5 a shirt or something, and go buy yourself a coffee. Mm-hmm. Do something, reward yourself with that task.
I like how you didn't reward yourself with repeating the same thing, like repeating the same pattern. Like you were like, go buy yourself a coffee. And we used to do the same thing when my kids were little again, and it's a twofold exercise because you're teaching your kids the process, the life skills, which I think are so important. And again, we're working towards this common goal. And then the reward is about time. It's not about necessarily the stuff. And that was when, again, and you're all about raising simple and raising kids, and you're in it with these, middles in the ranges from 8 to 16, where again, the reward isn't necessarily the material thing. It's about the time, it's experience. It's the time and the experience. Yeah. And that's what and the experience doesn't have to be epic. It doesn't have to mean we're going on vacation. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It could be, like you said, popcorn movie night.
Yep.
Done. Game night.
Yes.
You pick what's for dinner, whatever we're going to do. There are so many different things that we can come up with that are creative. Yes. And if you're not a creative person, because I don't always think of myself as an overly creative person, I would put it on my kids. Like, what do you come up with something? Obviously you can veto it, but as the parent, as the adult, it doesn't have to be something crazy, but like, if I'm like, I have ideas, what would bring value to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I feel like that helps give you a why as well. It gives you the why of why are you doing this? You're not just doing it because you like the way it looks. That's a nice benefit, but you're doing it because it also helps you live a certain lifestyle that you want, which is experiences over stuff, right? Yes. Quality over quantity, people over things.
You said something, and I wrote it down, and I didn't mention it in the intro, but I actually wrote it down. And there was a quote that you said where it says that your focus is around, I'm looking down because I'm reading it. Your focus is around using your home for living rather than storing stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. But just to even articulate that, because I think there are so many people out there that use their home as storage or a dumping ground. And again, whether you're running a million different directions or you just have this extra space, and it makes it easier to put off between the procrastination and the indecision and all that, to just put it off. And then what happens is your space winds up, you require a larger space to hold all of the stuff, when essentially, like you said, you really don't need that.
You don't need it. And if you have it, you literally have to actively work to not fill it. Because when we have the space, we'll fill it.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit, I want to dive into your book. I want to talk about that, kind of what prompted you to write that, and just learn a little bit more about some of the specific nuts and bolts strategies for our people, and talk about the Enneagram too. So, because my wheels have been turning as you've been talking. So we'll be right back. All right, Zoe. So talk about, so you started this journey on minimalism. At that time, you weren't blogging, right? So give us, like, how did this then become something that you were going to not just implement in your own life, but now you're going to teach it to other people. Now you're going to be on a public platform. Give us that chronology.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself.
You're all good.
Yeah. So after I found, Bea Johnson's website and felt so inspired to start letting go of my own things, I began that journey and started peeling away the layers and researching and Googling. And I found a group of other people writing about it, and I became friends with them. And then I started my own blog. And actually back then it was called the Minimalist Plate, which would be a perfect blog for a minimalist food.
I was going to say that is a very foodie. Yes.
It is a foodie, and I love food. In another life, I should have been a food tester, but anyway. So I started the Minimalist Plate, which is now Raising Simple, to just share my life and all these strategies and inspiration that I've been experiencing in my own world and with my children.
And then from there, you wound up writing a book.
Yes. And then from there, actually, the publisher reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in writing a book. And that was really shocking. Actually, I thought it was a hoax.
Like a spam,
I thought it was spam. I thought it was spam. I was like, who just writes and says, hey, are you interested in writing a book? I mean, I thought, yeah, that's fake. But no, it was real. And so I wrote a book, and that was really a wonderful experience. And I just love being able to share these strategies and this lifestyle with people. I feel like it's for everybody, no matter what, because clutter isn't just the things in your home. It's, toxic relationships. It's everything literally that we could say no to. Our cell phones, our screen time, everything, just obligations. And so that's minimalism to me. Yeah. Minimalism is a trade to me. It's trading the good for the best.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
There's a lot of good things in our life. There's a lot of things that are accessible to so many people in this day. So it's important to be able to say no to good things so that we can say yes to the best things, to the right things for us.
So we have a lot of parents who listen to this show. And again, one of the questions, and this isn't just exclusive for parents, it could be spouses too. So you have the buy-in, right? You're like, I'm drinking this Kool-Aid. I'm walking the walk, and I'm all in. But you, at the time, even before Matt entered the picture, you had other humans in your house who had stuff, who were not necessarily on the same board, and they were at school and they had friends. Yes. And so, it's again, I'm not picking on single people, but kind of like we said, when you're by yourself and you have complete ownership over your space and to a degree your time, you can start to implement these changes. But it's harder when you have these other people. So can you just walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. The best way to inspire someone else is to do it in your own life in the happiest, positive, most positive way possible, without picking on them and picking at their stuff. So let's just say I'm, all of a sudden I'm found minimalism and I'm on fire, and I'm like, this is awesome. And, I'm going to be telling my spouse now, or my partner, get rid of your, and then all of a sudden you become hyper-focused. You have too much stuff. Get rid of your clothes. This is really annoying me.
Yes.
That's not going to work.
No.
And so if you're sharing your experience with them, and you're like, oh yeah. And then they see how quick and how confident and how happy you are living with less, that's going to inspire them. And then they're more likely to let go of their stuff. And now
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
With kids, I like to, and it's, of course, it depends on the age. This isn't not necessarily going to work with teenagers, but with young elementary age kids, I like to practice with them. Like, let's just say I needed to declutter my utensil drawer in my kitchen. I would say, hey guys, this is like, could you guys help me? I need, there's like 4 spoons. How many do you think I actually cook with? Just to get them. So before I even talk about their stuff, I want them to help me and see it with my stuff in a good, positive environment.
I like that. Inviting them into the conversation and the process.
Exactly. And that's actually what I talk about in my book, that instilling and sharing and teaching a minimalist lifestyle to anybody in your home is actually about just positive conversations. That's what it is.
Yep. And again, I think it's reshifting the focus from what you're not having to what you're gaining, right?
Right. And that's why I like the word trade.
Yes.
You're trading.
Yep.
You're not losing out. You still have this,
Yep.
And in fact, when you let go of these, 5 stuffed animals, you still actually have the 3 that you really play with, and you can put them on the shelf and see them every day rather than stuff them in a basket and like never see them.
Yeah.
So
I agree. But I also do believe it has to start with you, right? You have to, and I've said this on shows before, and I'm sure you've talked to people in your life that have said, I want, my spouse or my kids to, make their bed or pick up their toys or fill in the blank of whatever it is. But I'm in their house and you've got piles of mail and your bed's not made and there's laundry on it. And I'm not judging, but we model behavior. And if you have to start, and I'm not saying that it's easy, right? A lot of times, my husband and I are both fairly organized. There's not a ton of clutter in our house. But, and my kids understand the process. Doesn't mean that they always subscribe to it not by a mile, but but that is still, they understand the process of doing it and they're able to make those decisions. And I think that's what's really important. So, all right. I want to talk a little bit about, because we touched on it, I want to talk a little bit about the emotional part of things. So you're an ENFP. So you have that feeling in you, but you also referenced that you are analytical. You think a lot. So where do you feel is more dominant for you? More of the thinking or more of the feeling?
Feeling.
Definitely think you're feeling dominant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think so.
Okay. So we talked, I asked you real quick and then I said, nope, we're going to table it for our conversation. So I asked you real quick what your Enneagram type was. And you said, you've taken the test. You're not sure if you're a 4 or 7, which for anyone that understands the Enneagram, a lot of times 4s and 7s are like misidentified at first. Like people aren't sure. There's a couple numbers on the Enneagram where people are like, I'm not sure. 9s and 2s often can look similar. Before you start peeling back the layers of the onion and getting really down into the nitty gritty, and 4s and 7s are that.
Okay.
So let's just talk a little bit about, so 4s are in the head, and they're in the heart triad. So 4s go from feeling to thinking. That's where you float. Okay. Cause there's 3 centers in the Enneagram: thinking, feeling, doing. We all have dominant, supportive, and then one that we use the least. And so, so dominant for 4s are feeling, and then they take in information and then you process it with thinking. But then when it comes to the doing, that is your least access muscle. Doesn't mean that you don't do, but but that's your least access muscle that needs to be developed. Now, 7s are thinking dominant. It means that's how you take in information. And then they move to doing. So 7s are thinking, doing, and feelings are least accessed.
So I'm probably a 4.
So you're probably a 4 because
I'm a 4, wannabe 7.
You're a 4, wannabe 7. So, and so the 4s are known as the individualist. Tell me if this sounds like you. So 4s are known as the individualist. They love being unique, right? They're not necessarily conformists. They like their unconscious motivation is to be different and to be known for something, not necessarily the mainstream. So you would think the stereotype of a 4, again, this is just very stereotypical, but the 4s are musicians, artists, creatives that have like their own individual like mark and identity. My one daughter is a 4, and Clutter, and this is where I want to kind of do the tie-in for her, and she's had strategies growing up with me, for better or worse, that has helped her to navigate it. But for her, feelings and emotional clutter really were a big roadblock for her, especially when she was younger, because everything had feelings. She also, as a 4, your orientation to time, which this is also something. So there's past, present, future, and every type has one orientation that they are just naturally like tied to. And so 4's orientation to time is the past. So they could be sentimental. They remember a lot of the past. So she's the one to kind of go down memory lane a lot, where 7s are future focused. And so 7s are like, they're the people that are on a vacation and they're already planning for the next vacation. You know, what do we have next on the horizon? So they're very future focused. And so like in the work that I do, kind of connecting dots between Enneagram and Clutter, I look at not just your type and the characteristics of your type, but also how does that orientation to time play in? Because for somebody that is, their orientation to time is past referenced, they may struggle with until they have those strategies in place that allow them to develop that muscle.
Right. Or they're so exhausted with multiple children and they move and live in 13 states. That might work too.
Wait a second. Hold the phone. You did not even say that. 13 states.
I've lived in 13 states.
Now I would have 4 things in a backpack if that were me, because I'd be like, I'm not packing up, because the thought of packing up is overwhelming to me.
Totally. Yeah. So that would do it. Even if you're a 4 and sentimental.
Exactly. It's exhaustion.
Yes, it is.
So, why don't you talk through, and I know we talked a little bit about them, but let's talk about some practical strategies. So we've got people that are listening that say, you know what, I'm tired of constantly picking up. I'm tired of moving box to box and things. I feel like I need to I'm ready to make this lifestyle
a reality and stick.
Yeah. Maybe they've tried and been unsuccessful.
Yes.
Walk us through if they were in a coaching session with you or reading your book.
Okay. Accountability. Find a friend, find somebody, whether that's online, a blog, an Instagram page that you feel like is inspiring. I think that it's so challenging to do hard things by yourself. Maybe for the people that it's not challenging, they're doing it by themselves, which is why it's not challenging. But if you've tried and, get a partner and get somebody that you can confide in and that can hold you accountable, or that you can share your progress with, because I think that that's motivating. So that would be first. And then second, I would say choose an area that feels the least stressful, that you think that you would have the most success at, that you can complete. And like I mentioned before, give yourself a reward, right? And not going out and buying something, unless it was something that you actually needed, right? Like you didn't have dishes or something to eat off of. Okay. But give yourself a reward, because you're doing this for a purpose, and it isn't just to make your house pretty. This isn't a really big key.
I think that's a really big thing that I think so many people just look at this and they say, oh, I want my countertop to be empty. Yes. Right. And they see the behavior.
Right.
But it's what's going to make it stick is the motivation.
Exactly.
What is your why? Yes.
Exactly. What is your why? So write down your why. Take your why down, like specific, pick an area, a space, write down your why. Let's just say you're going to declutter your bathroom. That doesn't feel stressful to you. Okay. If it does, please don't do your bathroom. Okay. So let's just say you're going to go through and you're just going to throw out all your half-used bottles of things. Please, if you're saving shampoo that you no longer like and you tried it and you just feel guilty about it, I'm giving you permission right now. Throw that stuff away, give it to your neighbor, say goodbye to it, because it's not doing you any justice in your cabinet. So, all right, back on track.
No, you're fine. It's great because I talk about that all the time, is guilt being one of the clutter pitfalls. And, and it's, I talk about it all the time with people's closets. I bought these shoes. They cost a ton of money, but they kill my feet. Every time you walk in that closet, that is an emotional drag on you. And it's a emotional reminder of, oh, I wasted money or I spent money. And it's not, again, and there's nothing good. The money's gone. You spent it. I mean, yes, you can try to reset, but the point is move on, move past it. Here we are.
Yeah.
Now let's move forward. So again.
Yes. Yeah. So choose a spot that you feel like you're going to be successful. Create a why. I want to be able to get ready in the morning in 20 minutes and feel good and find everything that I need in the morning and not have a big mess. Right. So declutter it. Oh, and one thing I talk about in my book that is a great strategy for that is try taking the items that you use. Like, let's just say there's like 15 things that you're actually using every morning, your lotion or your makeup. Take those items that you're actually using, right? Set those aside. Take everything else that you are not using, put it in a box. Put it in your closet where you don't see it. This is not a long-term thing. Okay, guys, this is a test.
Okay.
Put it in there. Now you're going to use just the items that you've actually been using for the last 2 weeks. I want you to just use those things for the next 2 weeks and see how your morning goes. Do you feel like you have everything you need?
Now, do you do that with clothes too, or just stuff?
You can do that. No, no, you can do that with clothes too. Yeah. And that's the reverse hanger method too.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's as effective because you're still staring at the stuff.
I was going to say, you're still seeing it.
You're still seeing it. So you're still seeing it. So you don't get that full benefit of the decluttered area. But I'm telling you, try this with your bathroom stuff.
Such a great idea. It's a great exercise.
Space. It's a great, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. An exercise. This is not a long-term solution. So yes, try this exercise. And what's crazy is that if you're like me, you'll even forget some of the things that you put in that box that you're not using, which is really kind of scary and validating that, yes, indeed, you don't need them. And you went on with your life and no one said to you Zoe, you look different. What's wrong with your face? Or, So.
Oh my gosh. Can I tell you a quick side note? Funny story.
Yes.
So a couple of back in the winter, when I live up in the Northeast, I was going to visit a girlfriend of mine who lives in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I was going for a long weekend. And so I packed my overnight bag, or not my overnight, a travel carry-on with whatever clothes, toiletries. Got to the airport and they were having an ice storm in Little Rock. And the airport,
which is bad,
shut down. Right. Because they are not equipped for that. So I'd already gotten to the airport, was at my gate and they're flight canceled. So annoyed, but not the end of the world. Got my car, came back home, rescheduled the flight for 2 weeks later because I knew the weekend was shot, whatever. So I just said, why don't we go in 2 weeks? So I rebooked it, and I decided, now my husband's like cuckoo crazy when it comes to unpacking bags. I decided, aside from my toiletry bag, because that had like my essentials, I'm not unpacking my bag because I don't enjoy packing. I don't like it, even to go away for a weekend. I don't like it. And I was like, I have enough. And I don't have a ton of clothes. I'm not a clothes person, but I said, I have enough stuff. There's nothing in here. And I kind of did it also as an exercise to say, like, am I even going to really miss it? Because I'm just going to go. So I took again, my essentials, had the, just tucked to the side. So it wasn't like staring in the way, and didn't touch a thing. Was totally fine. At one point I was like, where are my black running sneakers? And I realized they were in there, but I was like, it's fine. I have another pair I can just wear. Like, so that wasn't the end of the world. Yeah. Other than that, I didn't miss one thing. I got there. At that point, it had been like 2.5 weeks. I didn't even remember what I had packed, but it was fine. Right. I was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. But I did not miss a single item. I did not skip a beat. I had enough stuff. I was like, why are we low on underwear? And then I'm like, oh, I just remembered a bunch of my underwear is there. But it was an unintentional.
But you could wash your clothes.
Yes. And it was fine. So
yes.
And I'm somebody that doesn't have a lot. So I was thinking of it when you were talking about that exercise. I was like, I kind of just did that by default.
Yes. No, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, anyway, all right. So before we take our last final break, tell our listeners, where can they learn more about you, the book, all the things? Give them, plug away.
Yes. So I'm often on Instagram sharing, bits of my daily life and children and organized chaos, like I like to call it, Raising Simple, and raisingsimple.com for the website, and Minimalism for Families. You can get that everywhere books are sold.
Awesome. And everybody that knows this, we will link up to all this in our show notes, on our podcast page, YouTube, all the things. So no shortage of finding Zoë anywhere. So we are going to take one more quick break. Then we're going to come back with our wrap-up questions. So sit tight. All right, Zoë, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your story and walking us kind of through, your journey, because I think it's really inspiring for people that are out there going, this seems overwhelming, or I'm never going to be able to get there, to know that you can, just one step at a time, whatever that looks like for you. So thank you for that. We always like to ask our guests a few questions before they leave us. One of them is about books, and you referenced at the beginning of the episode, which is there's a train. We heard that with Matt too. You have a train in your yard. I remember the
literally
train
in our front yard.
Oh, is it in your front yard? Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
It's like 200 feet.
That's so fun.
It's cool.
Is there a book that either you're currently reading, or maybe something that's a go-to that you've gone back, that you could share with our listeners as a recommended book of choice?
Are you asking for a particular topic, or
whatever you want? It could be
any.
It could be whatever. It could be a lighthearted book. It could be something that's practical, self-help.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah. I know. I'm always one of those people who's like, I get a question and then I'm like, let me find the book for that question.
Yes. Well, this is broad stroke question. And I know for a lot of people, especially if you're readers, they're like, I can't pick, but
Yes. So I love this book currently, Living Small.
Okay.
Yes.
Cute. Yep. I like the
She's
cover.
going to have a new book coming out that I'm really excited about, because the bunk beds that I designed here in my house are going to be in her new book.
No way.
Called The Bunk Bed Book, by Laura Fenton.
Oh my gosh.
I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
And also, in other news, I love this.
The Science of Creativity. Love it.
Yes. So yeah, I'm just kind of a, nerd of
I love it.
Design and brain, and why we do the things we do, and how to change our perspective and create the life we want to create.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yes.
And then in this season of your life, and this might be a tough question to answer.
And then of course my book.
Yes. Minimalism for Families. Love it.
Yes.
Super cute.
Okay.
And again, we'll make sure that we post it
Yes.
and on all of our channels. Everyone go buy it. Where do you feel that you are the most, and we didn't really dive into, like, we touched on it, the different types of clutter: emotional clutter, physical clutter, calendar clutter, financial clutter, all the things, digital clutter. Mm-hmm. Where do you feel right now that you're really thriving? And where do you feel like you might be a little bit out of alignment, or, you know, even though you are a minimalist by nature, not by nature, but by practice, is there an area that you feel, even for your own standards, you might just be a little bit off kilter?
Okay. So off kilter, digital is really hard for me. I work online. Last thing I want to do is organize online. It's very tedious to me. It's like a task. There's nothing creative about it.
Yeah.
It's very uninspiring. So it's not fun for me, right? And anytime we have to do a task that isn't fun for us, it gets put on the back burner.
Fair enough.
So I would say, that's where, the area of digital clutter could use some work. And I would say, as far as the area that I'm excelling at, or, you know, doing really well at, thriving would probably be emotional clutter, and just clutter, just stuff in the house. That's physical stuff, amazing. And emotional. And I feel like my brain is wired to be able to share that shift and that trade.
I love that, because I think there are people that can say that they don't have a lot of physical clutter, but they still have a lot of emotional stuff that's still tied to it. Like, I think that you can, or, you know, I love the fact that you see them both in alignment, you know, because again, they do a lot of times go hand in hand, but removing the physical stuff alone is not going to, the act of the physical stuff isn't enough. It's, again, you have to have that why. And I think that why, and then creating that act probably helps too.
The why, and then creating a new relationship with stuff, right? We give our stuff the meaning. Our meaning, I mean, the stuff doesn't, we create that stuff and we give it the meaning. So, and I have some sentimental things from my grandparents, but not a lot. It's nothing that I can't manage. It's nothing that's weighing me down, you know? One other thing I wanted to share, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because a lot of people, I've been getting this message, and then just if I run into people in town, they think that because I'm minimalist, that I'm organized. Like, I'm an organized person. And I want to tell you, I'm not at all. I am not innately an organized person. And that is why I have to live a minimalist lifestyle.
I was going to say, yes.
I am like innately a slob, you know. I don't feel, and that's probably why, like, I'm not a Marie Kondo follower style person. I don't meticulously fold my clothes. To me, that's torture. Like, why spend that extra 0.2 seconds folding my clothes why put them right side in until I'm actually ready to wear them? Like, that's not my personality type, right? So, which is really funny, because Matt, he's very meticulous with his clothes.
That is very interesting, but I love that. And I think that's a really, really great point. And because there is a distinction between that. And I've seen people who are organized and have way too much stuff.
Right. And maybe I mean, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole other time.
But I don't enjoy organizing, and my brain is just sort of naturally feels like cluttered and disorganized. So I need, in order for me to be able to structure and get through the day, like, I need to have less. I need to have an environment that isn't cluttered.
That, I love it. I think that's not that I want to end our conversation, but I think that's a great place to stop for everyone to really resonate on that. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I definitely think you're a 4. Not that I'm supposed to type people, but I
love it. No, I'll go with you. I agree. It sounds like I'm a 4. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being on your podcast and chatting with you, and hopefully your listeners have found this valuable.
I am sure they have. And it's been a pleasure having you. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome to our show. Make sure you click the follow, subscribe, like, whatever button they're calling it these days. We're here every week. We've been here every week for the past 5 years. So you can go back and listen to whatever episode on any topic that you could ever imagine. We're on YouTube and every streaming podcast platform. And make sure you follow Zoe on social media at Raising Simple, and make sure that you follow us at Simply Be Organized. And if you're on Facebook and you want to hop over into our Facebook group for the podcast, it's called This Organized Life Podcast. And we're there all the time. Post your questions, comments, and we will be back next week. Until then, I'm Zoë Kim. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love by sharing it with your friends. And if this is your first time tuning in, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so that you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. Head on over to YouTube and make sure that you follow us there as well. We record interviews, videos, and conversations with all of our guests. And again, if you want to learn more about our product offerings, feel free to visit us at simplybeorganized.com, where you can connect